held a community poll recently asking which of my GPUs people wanted to see tested with God of War's new FSR 2 upscaler. The winner was the nVidia GTX 980 Ti, and I can see why. For a 2015 GPU that can be had for less than $200 or £160 at the time of recording, it still packs a hell of a punch and can run God of War surprisingly well even without any temporal trickery. Still, it runs a little below 60 FPS at 1080 high settings, so let's see if this old dog can learn a new trick. Per AMD's specification, FSR 2 is recommended to be used on an RX 590, GTX 1070 or higher GPU. In that regard, the 980 Ti is a bit of a question mark. Actually, I suspect AMD might have discounted the 980 Ti, as well as the GTX 1060, due to their 6GB frame buffers. I mean, after all, who uses less than 8GB of VRAM in 2022, eh? Anyway, 41 identical benchmark runs in 72 hours had me pining for a change. I was fed up with this skinny bugger running in his mouth, so I decided to start the run where the last one ended and continue up to the point I snapped his scrawny neck. Spoilers, I guess. As per usual, I'm testing with the Ryzen 5 5600G overclocked to 4.6 GHz with 16 gigs of DDR4 3600 RAM. As per previous testing, the results from native 1080 at high settings and ultra textures were neck and neck with those from the GTX 1070, a little under 60 FPS on average, but dipping into the 40s. I'd normally just suggest dropping settings other than texture quality to original to maintain closer to a locked 60, but thankfully we have a better option. FSR Quality lifts averages by 21% to 68 FPS, 1% lows to 52, and does so without doing much, if any, harm to image quality. If you're tempted to try lower than quality, however, you might as well skip balanced. It offers only just under 3 more FPS on average and 2 FPS 1% lows, and depending on your monitor size and how far you sit from it, you might start to see temporal artifacts at this point. Assuming you're okay with a bit of a drop in quality if it improves FPS, reducing FSR to performance takes the average to 77 FPS and lows to 56. If you are hoping for a locked 60, I'm afraid the 980 Ti isn't going to get there at high settings. The ultra performance FSR level is grainy as hell and still occasionally drops slightly from 60. At this point you should really consider using the original quality preset. However, if you're not too attached to the idea of a 60 FPS experience, you might be tempted to switch up to the Ultra Quality preset. At this point the game gives a VRAM warning, but during my test run the actual allocated VRAM didn't exceed about 5.7 gigs, and the actual VRAM used was substantially lower most of the time. Alas, the performance gain from FSR was disappointingly low. The native run clocked in at 45 FPS on average with lows of 32. Adding FSR Quality only offered a 12% improvement of 50 FPS, and 1% lows hardly moved. The story doesn't improve much after that either. Balanced FSR adds less than 4% extra performance, still averaging in the low 50s, and with 1% still in the 30s. FSR Performance does at least add 10% above balanced, but still doesn't manage to crack a 60 FPS average. That requires the rather ugly Ultra Performance setting, and as usual you'd be better off dropping other quality settings before using this level of scaling. It doesn't help that even for its 640 by 360 render resolution, 1% lows are still in the 30s. In conclusion, the 980 Ti is still a great card, and a small amount of FSR can help to highlight that fact. Sadly, the high preset is a little too much to ask for a locked 60 FPS experience in God of War, but I can't help but wonder what might be around the corner for other games. Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080 medium runs just a little short of 60 FPS and 45 FPS at high. Forza Horizon 5 runs its benchmark at just under 50 FPS at 1080 Ultra. Both of these games support FSR 1 already, and FSR 2 could be the icing on the cake for old workhorses like this one. Of course, the 980 Ti was a product of its time. It performs well enough even by modern standards, but with only 6GB of VRAM and a massive cost in power. If you're interested to see what the GTX 1070 can do with 2 gigs more VRAM and 100 watts less power, check out the video on the left. If you want to see how an RX 480 does with just 4 gigs of VRAM, check out the video on the right, and if you want to see what FSR can do for integrated graphics, there's a link in the description. Kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.